Hey everybody, I am Wyatt, joined by Alex this week. This is Cinema Trip Reviews, and we are going to be talking about The Last of Us, episodes 2 and 3. We are going to be going on kind of a bi-weekly schedule, if you haven't seen our posts on Twitter, pretty much just because that way we have a movie review in between each week, so we're not just bombarding you with TV episodes of a show that maybe some of you don't watch. So we want to have a variety of different content out there. So we wanted to bring you a couple episodes each week, and then that way the finale will be its own separate episode. It'll be its own individual episode. We'll be able to kind of break down the whole season as well. But today we're going to be talking about two pretty strong episodes, I would say. Coming off of that first one, which we really enjoyed. If you haven't seen our episode 1 review, definitely go back and rewatch that one. First episode we're going to be talking about is episode 2, which is entitled Infected. And it opens up with a pretty jarring scene, man. Like, it was pretty heavy. Heavier than I expected, with that old lady getting pulled out of her little nice lunch she was having.
Yes. So this woman's just trying to have a nice lunch. These people are interrupting.
Yeah, and it was like the military and everything. I forget exactly where it was. It was in some foreign country. But I guess she was like a professor at some like university. She studied like fungus and that kind of thing. I don't know the technical term for it. They say it a bunch of different times. It's just something that's never on my mind.
Doesn't stick.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, she studies that. She's a professional and that sort of thing. So they bring her in and they have her look at the slide, and she's like, "There's no way this could come from like a person. There's no way this could happen." And that kind of goes back to what you saw in the beginning of the very first episode with that old time talk show. They were talking about like if the temperatures rise and it's global warming, the infections and fungus can actually grow within the human body where normally it wouldn't be able to actually survive. So she didn't believe it at first.
How does that make sense though? Like, the human body's pretty hot already, Like, are they saying that because temperatures are growing in the world that the human body's also growing?
Everybody,
Like,
you would just be hotter, I guess.
I don't know. You would get a fever eventually. I mean, I get it to like that it would survive in the world, but not like in the human host. It seems like it should always survive in us. But
yeah,
nitpicking.
and I mean, you don't know what causes it until the third episode, which we'll get to, where they actually kind of give you an explanation about maybe what happened. They take her in, and she actually examines that dead body, which is pretty gnarly when she like cuts the leg, the bite open, and it's like all that white, like, and it looks like
messing with it.
Yeah, it looks like cotton or foam or just like that kind of stuff, just mold.
She puts her hands in his mouth. I was
yeah.
Don't do it.
Even Annette was like, ugh, no. And it's like, and it was still moving, like those hairs and stuff she pulled out. And then you could see it like even more growing out of its mouth. So like, even though the body was dead, the mold is still moving and growing, which is, it's so nasty.
Yeah.
But yeah, they sit her down and are like, well, what do you think we should do? Because they're like, it started with like a woman being bit, and then she went to work, and then a couple hours later or whatever, she just started flying off the handle. Yeah, convulsing, biting people, attacking people. And I mean, they said like 13 or 14 employees are missing now, and then they don't even know who initially bit her. So they had to exterminate like most of those people. So, and then they asked her what her professional opinion was, and there's like, there's no cure for this. There's no way you're going to be able to do this. There's no vaccine. There's nothing to prevent this. And man, it hits hard when she says bomb, bro. Like,
bomb it.
I was like, it just sends a sense of dread through you. And I was like, oh man.
The thing that really got me, she's like, I'd like to go home.
Yeah.
She's like, just can somebody take me? Like, she knows. She's like, we're fucked.
Even before she even says bomb, like when she's sitting there holding her tea, you could hear her like cup shaking against her, like a little saucer. But yeah, she's like, I would like to go home and spend time with my family. But like, even for her to say just like bomb it, like just wipe everybody out, don't let anybody know, just bomb it. Like, how serious that is. It's wild, man.
It's an effective opening. I would say out of all the openings so far, even the third episode, which I know we're going to get into, it's my favorite cold open.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, I mean, the third one, I was surprised that one didn't even have a cold open. It just went straight into the credits.
That one went straight in.
Yeah. I mean, there really isn't too much, I would say, that happens in this second episode. I mean, you have that opening scene. You get to spend some more time with Tess, Joel, and Ellie. Tess don't trust Ellie still because because they know about her, what's going
Yeah.
on, so they're kind of keeping their distance. Even when she's sleeping, they're like holding their guns and watching her still. And like whenever she says she has to go to the bathroom, they're like, "There's nothing bad in here, is there?" And he's like, "Only you." And she's like, "Ha
Just
ha,
you.
very funny."
It cements though. This girl is doing still a fantastic job at Ellie.
Oh yeah, she's great in it, and I mean Pedro Pascal plays a great Joel in it, and
He's stealing the show so far.
yeah, and he's just still just not trusting her at all. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
Tess, she's a little bit more like friendly. She's a little bit more open about it. But yeah, Joel's just nope. And I just love how Ellie's just consistently just always trying to get a gun from them. She's like,
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, I
this is
have
where
an
that
extra
gag
hand.
starts. She's like, I have a gun. No,
No, oh come on, I have a free hand. Good for you.
good for you. Yeah, and it keeps going. I wonder if they'll keep doing. I mean, eventually she's got to get a gun at least.
Well, I mean, in the third episode,
Oh
which
yeah,
we do,
yeah. But I mean, eventually he's got to give her.
oh
one,
yeah,
but
she's
maybe
gonna give her one.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you get to kind of spend some time with it. This is where how you really get to see the world, how it is. I mean, this is what you would normally see in the games when you're just walking around. But like a couple of those shots, like you see, I think it was like a cafe, but it's just nothing but like moss and just
Yeah.
overgrown over the tables, and it just looks just like the game. It looks fantastic. All the buildings just kind of toppled over and all like overgrown with weeds and stuff. I love
This is
how it's designed.
Oh, and I know it's a lot of it's that like blue screen technology they're using for like Mandalorian
Yeah.
and stuff, but oh my god, dude, it looks so fucking good.
It does.
I'm like, sometimes I'm so fooled to be like, what is? I know there's real things in the scene. Like I know sometimes like the car is real or like whatever they're
Mhm.
walking over is real, but like sometimes I have a hard time telling where the real ends. You know, sometimes it's easier. You're like, okay, that's the green screen or the blue screen
Yeah.
or whatever it is. But sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it looks really real.
Yeah. And I mean, just you get to see a couple different spots from the game, like whenever they're
Yeah.
going through like the water. I love that interaction where she's like, I don't know how to swim. And he's like,
Eh.
what are you talking about? He like just jumps down off the step and it's like barely up to his knees.
She's like, no pools.
He's like, how was I supposed to know that?
No, which is almost direct. I mean, that whole hotel is almost directly from the game. This whole episode, there are shot upon scene that are directly ripped from the game.
Yeah.
Which I love. I mean, as the gamer that played
And
it, I love.
specifically with the hotel, like when they're wading through the water, when she goes up and she's just like kind of role playing there. She's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, what can I get you? Where are you staying today, sir?" Or whatever. That's the shit that you would hear in the game. Like when you're just kind of looking around as Joel, Ellie's just talking to you, like doing some random shit. That's exactly like what would happen in the game, and it's great. I love how
That-
they're just it's like a perfect copy.
It's the genuine moments that makes you fall in love with the relationship of Joel and Ellie.
Exactly.
We're still in the earliness of it. I'm not arguing about being slow because you're already in the game probably 3 or 4 hours into the game.
Yeah,
where
exactly.
We're only 2 hours into
Yeah.
the show, so I think it's moving at a correct pace. It's great so far. I love the quip. We missed it earlier. I love when they're talking and they're walking on the highway and they're talking about. She's like, "Is there ones that sound like bats?" And they're like. And they kind of look at each other all like strange. And then she's
Yeah.
like, "Is there big ones that throw it at you?" And they're like, "Oh God, I hope not." Like,
Yeah,
but we
she
know
was
they're
like, I heard
coming.
there's like ones that their heads split open, and yeah, and like they
Yeah.
have like radar or whatever, and like, what are you talking about? So, and that's the thing is like, don't they exist in the show universe, or is it a monster they just haven't seen yet?
I think it's I haven't seen because they definitely kind of look at each other when they talk about the clickers, about the heads being split open. They know about those.
Yeah,
But when she says about like the bloaters, I don't know if they're called the bloaters in the
yeah.
game, but
I mean, we're gonna
they're
get
like-
one. We saw one in the
we saw in the
previews a couple
trailer.
times,
Yeah. So I just think it's something they do not know yet. So I'm
Yeah.
pretty excited.
And that's I just love those types of moments. Like, and you get them even in episode 3 where you're just walking around and he even says in episode 3 where she's asking, he's like, "You asking so many damn questions," and she's like, "Still didn't answer the one I just asked."
Like, because you don't answer any of them.
But like when they're going through that hotel, and because they even say about like, should we go the short way or the long way? Well, the short way might get us killed, so let's go the long way around. But they have to kind of inspect from the top of the hotel or whatever. And I like that little interaction because they have to. It's similar to the game where you have to like, oh, can't get through this spot. We got to lift somebody up so they can crawl through to get through around the other side. And you kind of get a little bit of a bonding moment between Ellie and Joel in that one as well, where she's just asking him questions, and he answers like one of them, and then he's like, "All right, no more personal questions."
Yeah, I'm done.
I'm done. And then that, like, it comes up even in the third episode where she's like, I go to school, like I know I know some stuff, and then she asks him another question. He's like, I thought you went to school, and she's like, it was a bad school or it was a shitty school.
I don't know, even in the game, and Marissa was asking me, she's like, does he ever tell her about his daughter? And I was like, I don't even think in the game they ever really bring it up.
See, I don't remember.
You know, as a player, it's been a long time. Me too. I mean, I should probably play it again, but I told Marissa, I was like, I don't think so. I mean, don't quote me, but I don't think they'll do it in this either. I think he'll avoid the question.
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense. I mean, especially within the third one where he was just like, where he kind of tells her, like, let's not talk about the past, even especially with Tess and everything, which we get to.
Mm-hmm.
But here you get to really see how some of the clickers and the infected work in this universe, in this TV show, when they go up to the top and you see they overlook down across like the little valley there, and it's just they're like zombies are stuck and grown together, kind of crawling around, and they're talking about how you can step on a patch of like mold or something like miles away and it'll wake up a whole group like way out there, but they know exactly where you're at and they know exactly where to go to find you. And that of course is going to come up later in the episode.
Chekhov's gun, is that what it's called, or whatever it is?
But I'm
if
sure
you bring it up in the first act, it comes up in the third act.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure it's going to come up as the series goes on as well. That's the point of setting it up. But you kind of get to know how kind of their system works, how they've been kind of getting around for all these years. And even like Tess says, like, you may be, immune to, their infection, but you're not immune to getting ripped apart by these things. Yeah. So you got to stay close. You got to stay quiet and do what we say. They have they have their process of going about the actual town and everything.
Yeah, and this is the first big change from the game, which is fine because we already discussed in the first episode they're kind of going away from the gas.
Yeah,
they're not really doing any of that. Yeah, which is fine. So these tentacles are like the way that they're going to kind of alert and the way they kind of spread through things, which is not really in the game. But I do like the change. I actually think visually seeing it like this is kind of a cooler change. Yeah, so I'm with that change.
So what they're trying to do, apparently they're trying to meet up with a group of Fireflies. That way they can go out west, get Ellie to where she's going. And then Joel, of course, is going to try to find his brother. So to get to where they need to go, they mentioned as they're sitting there at the top of the building that they got to go through the museum, which is, of course, a spot in the game that you go to. And we talked about it before. It looks exactly like the game with how the showcases and everything. You're
perfectly
sneaking around. You even get them crawling around underneath away from the clickers. And this is where you really get to see the threat of the clickers and how dangerous they are. Even just one of them can scare like two grown people that have been around them for all these years.
Oh, and there's just two of them. I think there's two of them in the thing, but still, this is a scary scene.
Yeah, it's very tense, and it's very slow and drawn out. Just them walking up the steps, and the set design's amazing. Just all the mold all over the walls and the stairs and stuff.
It looks great. It looks great. Again, this is where I'm saying I have a hard time. I'm sure some of that's green screen. I'm sure. Yeah. But I cannot tell. It looks all organic. It looks like they're there. It looks fantastic.
Yeah. But you get some elements from the game just kind of sneaking around. You even had like at one point the glass on the floor that he steps on and alerts. But it really shows you how sensitive these clickers are. Because, I mean, when they alert him the first time, Ellie like just breathes out a little bit too loud. And that alerted him. So, I mean, you really got to be, it's like Quiet Please. It's like those kind of monsters. You got to be silent. I'm surprised in The Last of Us they're not walking around bare feet through sand everywhere they go, like the Quiet Please.
Like the Quiet, yeah. The set design when they first get attacked by the clickers, I mean, and I might be mistaken again, it's been a while, but that room, I'm pretty sure I was telling myself, I was like, I think that is the exact room you fight the clickers in the game. Like those side kind of hallways that led around it, I was like, I remember being in those, getting around, and I was like, so I think I think it's the exact set design. Exactly. I was
Yeah.
upset they didn't throw a bottle to distract him though.
I
They gotta
know.
throw, they gotta
Maybe
throw a
it'll happen
bottle.
eventually.
Yeah,
Maybe. But I was
gotta
I was
throw
hoping for
something.
it as well. It's so tense just because like
Oh yeah.
Joel's like hand fighting one trying to get away from at one point. Ellie's just like crawling under the tables trying to get away. Tess is fighting him. But that goes on for a minute, and I mean Joel does what you do in the games. You like break something else to kind of distract him. I mean,
Hmm.
he kind of pushes that statue into the glass, and then he hides around that corner. And that's a tense scene when he's kind of slowly reloading, and then all you hear is like the clicking just right beside him, and he's like, "Oh shit!"
As soon as it cuts away, I was just like, it's gonna be right beside
Yep.
him. Why would you cut away like that? Now I know.
Sure enough, any interaction, increases your chance of being infected. Even being scratched by them or something can infect you. I mean, Tess, she gets out of it with a hurt ankle, so you may think. I mean, Ellie, she gets scratched, but at this point, she's like, oh,
Yeah,
at least it was me
yeah, I'm
out of
cool.
all of this. I'm good. But you get another scene directly from the games because when they go out onto the roof, you have just that plank that goes between the buildings, and that's like lifted directly from the
Directly.
games. Even when just Ellie and Joel sitting there on the top of the building looking out over the city, that's directly from the game as well. And it just looks like you said, it looks so amazing. Even though you could tell like it's green screen, it's hard to tell where the like
Where it
practical
stops.
effects, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the CG takes in. There's something up with Tess because he's trying to like tape her foot up and talk to her, and he's like, "Just go watch her. Like I got this. Don't worry about it."
Yeah. Just like you stop being so cynical, like lighten up basically.
Yeah, look at the good things.
Look
Like
at the good things,
yeah,
yeah.
look at the good news. Like we're
Yeah.
alive. But they have to make it to like that one building with like the gold like kind of dome at the top you see in that background, which is another like lifted directly from the game. And when they get there, that inside of that hall is exactly like that game, man.
Yeah, exactly like the game again, man.
Yeah, and for the most part, this scene is lifted from the game, except for kind of the climax of it. They changed it up a little bit here. Uh,
Yeah, a little bit.
a little bit because once they get there, the Firefly members they were supposed to meet, they're all dead. Apparently, and Joel even says like one of them got infected. They started turning on each other, and
Mhm.
everybody's dead. But then you have that Tess. She starts talking. And she's like, I'm gonna
Shows
stay here. I'm not going back. This is my last run or whatever. And Ellie's like, oh shit, she's infected. And it's almost the exact like line for line from the game. But yeah, she got bit, and Joel's just going through it. He's just like, this is the last person I cared
Yeah.
about for all these years, and now she's infected. What am I gonna do? But she does the only thing she could do, because one of them wakes up and he decides to just blast it away with his revolver or whatever. But bringing up what we learned
Clicks,
earlier,
breaks the thing,
I think
yeah.
it was like cordyceps or whatever. I forget what the
Yeah,
exact
the
word it
the
is.
things that spread out, the roots.
Exactly. But just him killing that one clicker on the ground alerted a whole horde of them, and they're coming directly for that building where they're at. Whereas in the game itself, it was Fedra that came
It's
in,
yeah.
and but that was coming, and they were gonna bust in and pretty much take them or kill them. But both versions, the show and the game, Tess stays behind to let them get away since she was gonna die already. She didn't want to turn, so she's like, "I'm just gonna go out and blaze of glory," and
Yeah.
and that's it. But I mean, the game, she gets black. You don't see it happen. You hear it happen as you're walking away as Joel and Ellie, but she gets blasted away. But in the show here, she like dumps the gas everywhere. She throws the grenades, and she's sitting there with that lighter. And it's kind of a weird scene how it happened.
Yeah.
But that like kind of that clicker just walks right up to her, and he has it's so gross. Has those like
Mac
just
Daddies are.
has that gross tentacles coming out of his mouth. But yeah, and I mean, I don't know if I could just was seeing things. I didn't watch it a second time, but it looked like as he was like making out with her a little bit, it looked like her eyes and stuff were turning like immediately as he
Yeah,
was doing it.
it is a weird scene, and people complained about it already, but like it is like, why would he kiss her? And I get that. But I
Yeah,
do see you. Like he's kissing her spreading the thing or whatever he's doing, which doesn't super bother me. You know what even bothered
doesn't
me
bother
more
me.
than it bothered me more. I'm like, why is she fucking with this lighter? She just dumped a bunch of grenades. Like
Yeah,
I
just
would be
pull a pin.
pull a pin and hold a grenade, you know?
Yeah,
Let it
there
go.
was like 6 other ones. You could pick one up and
One could be good, you know, that I could
yeah,
pull a
you
pin
didn't
and just
have to
hold
do
it.
that. You didn't have
Yeah.
to kiss
Like, you know,
a clicker.
come on. Like she's fuck with, and as soon as it's not working, I'll be like, oh shit, I need a new source of flame here.
Yeah. The only thing I
But
could really think about was maybe like they can sense that she was already infected and they didn't like see her as like an immediate threat or something. I don't know.
yeah, but that makes
It was different.
the kiss even weirder. Visually, very cool, very creepy, very like. That's why they did it, because it's supposed to be like, ugh, it's supposed to be
Yeah.
like, oh, that's gross. I get story wise, why does it make sense? Even if they did sense that she was turning, that why was he like, well, like I want her to turn faster,
Yeah, it's
Um,
better than them just rushing in and trying to maul her while she's
yeah,
trying to light it or something.
yeah. But all in all, I mean, the episode pretty much ends here. She does eventually get the lighter off. It blows up. The whole building blows up.
Yeah.
Um,
I like
you
that
get one
shot of
last,
them outside though, like where
yeah,
Ellie's standing in front of the bit and you see like the clickers on
one
fire just rushing
running
out of the
out.
building. Yeah.
Yeah. You get one more. You kind of see how he's upset at this. Joel's upset when this episode
Oh
ends. Which comes up next episode,
Even
but we'll
going
get
into
there.
the next one, yeah.
Yeah, but all in all, the tenseness that this episode
Oh
made me
yeah.
feel was this is my favorite episode. We're gonna follow it up with a really strong contender, but so far,
But for a different reason.
yeah, for a different reason. So far, this was the second was my favorite episode. Just the action of it, the clicker scene, which we brushed by, but it's a good 20-minute scene. Like it's
Yeah.
a long scene, and that's good.
It's drawn out. It builds that tension. It
Which
lets
is
you, it hangs on it for a while until the actual attack happens. Which is great. Which is exactly what would happen in a game. You're sneaking around
Yeah.
hoping you don't make a noise. And then as soon as
exactly.
you do, all hell breaks loose. Then you're trying to scramble, figuring out what to do next.
Exactly. I didn't feel like the character build was much in this, but it was enough. But this is my favorite episode far.
Yeah, this was more like kind of like a world building, like showing you around the lay of the land, how the world is, explaining how the clickers work in a way, doing that type of stuff. And of course, kind of going along the little basic plot points of the game here.
Yeah, we got to walk. There's a lot of walking in the game.
A lot of walking. And since we mentioned that, we'll go into episode 3 called Long, Long Time, which we were talking about following the game closely. This episode, a majority of it isn't even in the game. This is a majority of this episode is specifically made for the show. I mean, some
big deviant.
Some don't like it. Some do. I mean, the woke mob came out hard for this one, which is like, you can't impress anybody, I guess. But
somebody's gonna be mad.
I really enjoyed this episode. I mean, me and you were both very excited to see Nick Offerman in this, and just in the show in general as Bill. We both, of course, like everybody else, thought it was going to be the Bill that we knew from the game, just that asshole, just going back and forth, just with Ellie, just talking shit. But you really got a great fucking love story in this episode, and it's heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking.
It is so heartbreaking. But and I don't know if you saw like Neil Druckmann, like his tweet or anything after the episode, because of course everybody was talking about this episode after it dropped. He even said like, why are you all crying and upset? This was the happy episode.
What? I did hear there's a 2-hour cut of this episode, which I hope they put that out.
I would like to see it.
I would watch that. That would be interesting.
I saw like the showrunner was like, I cried until it hurt or something.
Yeah,
like with the 2-hour, I wept till it hurt.
I wept.
But the beginning episode, it picks up pretty much right where you left off with Joel and Ellie. They I guess they camped out. It was like 10 miles outside of Boston or whatever. They got right outside of the city.
Yeah.
And I just love that interaction too. Like whenever like they wake up and Ellie's about to talk to him, and he's like, "Nope, I don't want to hear it. Like, don't say you're sorry." He's like, "I wasn't gonna say I was sorry," and she was just saying like, "I don't want you to blame me for shit that isn't my fault. Like, you and Tess chose to take me on this trip. You chose to go get your battery or try to get your car. Like, this isn't my fault. So stop acting like it is."
I was gonna say the same thing. That's one of my favorite interactions. That's exactly what she says. She's like, you were just as much here because of me as you were because of yourself. So like, don't put it on me. Tess, I understand she's sad Tess died, but it's not my fault. I like that.
And Joel immediately is like, fair enough.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they go to like some gas station that Joel left like kind of just emergency supplies at, and he just can't find them. He's looking around. He's like, "You lost them, didn't you?" And he's like, "It's been a long time. I'm honing in on them." It's been a while. So it's been years since I've been here. But she's kind of roaming around and she finds like that secret, like just little, like looks like a trap door kind of that goes
Yeah.
down into like a basement area. And she like, this building's been looted. You're not going to find any. She's like, I'm going to look anyway. And she finds like a box of like Tampax. And she's like, looted my ass. Like I found
Which
something.
you wouldn't think, but man, if you were a woman, that would be like, yes,
Hit
like
the
fucking
gold mine.
gold.
Yeah, and then you hear like that clicker noise, and you're like, "Oh fuck, what's gonna happen?" And then you
Yeah.
see like it's trapped in all that rubble; it can't move. And I feel
Still
like
gets
this is
too
the
close
first
to
time
it.
she really gets to like see one that isn't a danger to her up close, and that's why she like cuts its head open, and it's
Yeah,
so
she, like-
gross. You see like that like puff stuff, like the white come
Again,
out.
yeah, like the
Like I
cotton.
mentioned, yeah, it looks like cotton. And then she just fucking kills it. She just stabs it right in the head, and that's like her first kill, I guess.
Brutal.
It's
Yeah.
brutal.
She doesn't
uh,
even like wince. She's just like,
Yeah,
like, Jesus,
heartless.
man. Heartless. I mean, I guess she's been dealing with it for her whole life, literally.
Literally her whole life. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's probably sick of it.
Yeah, and I mean, she gets out right in the nick of time, and she meets up with Joel, and Joel puts that like M16 away. He's like, you're barely gonna find any bullets for this. You're just gonna be wasting them. So just kind of hide it away. You don't need these right now.
I might come back and have bullets for it when I come back.
Yeah, and bro, as soon as they watch this, I immediately thought of you because you were like, I didn't get an M16 when I started the game or whatever, and he immediately just puts it away in the next episode. He's like,
Yeah.
I don't need this.
Good. Because I didn't get it either.
It's like,
damn
yeah, I didn't have it either.
it. Yeah. I never got an M16.
And this is another scene like you had in the second episode where they're just kind of walking down those just empty stretches of road by themselves and they're talking. She's asking just tons of questions. And you really kind of find out a little bit what happened. Because she even
Planes
said, like,
fell.
she asked him what happened. And he's like, well, I thought you went to school. And he's like, well, I went to Fedra school. They're going to teach you what they want you to learn.
know. Yeah.
But he mentioned that, like, it started within, like, wheat and bread and, like yeast factories and stuff, and then it got into like the food products that got shipped over, and then like the more of those products you ate, you got sick and became infected. And it was like, that's an interesting way to kind of start an infection or like start a virus.
Did you read that thing where it's saying because he forgot the pancake mix and because he didn't get a cake for his birthday in the first episode, they're like, that's why they weren't infected.
Didn't even think about that.
Because he didn't get the pancake mix and he didn't get a cake. So they're like, so they were good. And I'm like,
see, that makes sense. I didn't think about the Joel and his daughter thing, but I did see a picture. I didn't see like an article about like when she went and visited the neighbors, they were making like cookies and cakes. And I was like, that's how they got infected.
But
I didn't think about the Joel thing where they were going to get the cake and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, they were going to get the cake in the end, and then in the beginning she was like, you forgot the pancake mix, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry.
See, they put all these things in there for a reason.
Think about this stuff.
Straight up. I didn't even know that, but it makes perfect sense. But it's such an interesting way to start the apocalypse it's in the food. Like nobody knew until it was too late.
Again, though, I guess probably mushroom get in your foods probably sometime, once in a while, you know,
mold.
if it's cut close enough, mold. Yeah.
But I know they mentioned it. It was in like the second or first episode. They insinuated, they mentioned like bread or yeast. They didn't really say like that was the cause or anything like it. But I mean, Joel says it here. And they come across, they were going to go down this road, and he's like, no, let's go this way. I don't want you, there's stuff down there I don't want you to see. She's like, was it going to hurt me? He's like, no. He's like, well, fuck it, I'm going to see it. I want to see it. Now I got to see it because you don't want me to see it. But it's some heavy shit, man. It's just a pile of just skeletons and bones.
Burnt
and
bodies,
he explains that the Fedra came in and just cleared whole towns of people out and took them to the quarantine zones, and whoever when the quarantine zones were filled, whether you're infected or not, they just straight up murdered you. Mm-hmm. And that's when you cut 20 years in the past, you go back right whenever it started in 2003, and you see that same like blankie and everything you see, and you see the mom and the child that were the skeletons 20 years later, and they're putting them on the back of the truck and sending them off. You're like, oh great. No, like, geez. That's where you get introduced to Bill.
Nick Offerman, Bill.
Yep, and then they're going in to clear his house out, but he's in his like secret like basement that he has built, just in his little recluse behind his computer with his like security cameras and monitors and stuff.
survivalist, he says. I'm sorry, he's not a prepper. He's a survivalist.
Survivalist.
He's a survivalist.
And as soon as they leave, he comes out, and this is probably the only time you're gonna see the gas mask in the series.
Yeah.
He comes out with that gas mask and shotgun on, makes sure everybody's gone. And I love this scene because this is exactly what everybody would be doing if they were alone in like the apocalypse or whatever. He's just going from store to store, busting in, taking all of his supplies. And it's so funny because like the first couple places he goes, like one is Home Depot, the liquor store. And I was like, this is exactly what Ron Swanson would be doing in the apocalypse. He'd be going to Home Depot. He'd be going to the liquor store. Yeah, this is all the shit he would be doing.
I'd be like, all right, we're getting drunk. Let's do it.
But he literally, it shows him build up that whole fucking compound that he makes around like that whole like housing development and everything. He sets up the fences, the all the booby traps you see in the games and shit is all here. But you don't get to see everything that you saw in the game. It's a completely different take on it. You're literally following Bill around for pretty much this whole episode.
Oh, this whole episode, yeah.
Yeah, and you get to see from the start of the apocalypse, and you get to see how he's living. And man, that would be, you really have to be comfortable by yourself, because as it's showing like through the years or whatever, he's just sitting there, just silence, just making food for himself, just sitting at the dinner table, eating and drinking or whatever. I'm like, man, like, I feel like I would drive myself crazy.
I think it's one of the best. I mean, we're going to get into it, but I think it's setting up one of the best themes for this episode about finding something to care about.
Yeah.
But you are right. They do change it a little bit in the game. He's kind of more in like a city. I mean, it's a town, but I would say it's more like there's like a street and stuff. This is like a very small town. It looks like there was like eight buildings in it. You know, like it was a very, very like it looked like a street basically.
Mm-hmm.
But and the other one I think is a little bigger. Which we'll get into. Two of my disappointments about this episode. We'll get to. But
yeah, he's like a huge gun nut.
Gun nut, prepper, prepared,
everything. Yeah, he knows exactly what to do in this situation.
Yeah, he's farming.
He built that big ass generator. He's running everything off of, like in his backyard and everything.
He's living the life. I mean, compared to what a lot of people did in this apocalypse, this guy's doing.
He's got a shower. He's got hot water. He's got everything he needs.
He's gotten good food. It looks like some of those meals. I was like, damn,
he's killing deer. Like he was skinning that deer, like in his shed and stuff. Like this dude is made. He's got it made right now. But then, of course, one of his, and I like his traps. Like every time something trips it, it goes on the monitor, so he can see exactly what it is. And
it's like 4 or 5 years in after, right? This is like
I think
5
it's a couple.
years.
It's like 3 or 4. Yeah,
3 or 4. Yeah, it's a couple years after the initial.
Yeah,
thing.
So he's been living by himself for a couple years. But something falls in his hole outside, and it's Frank. It's Frank who you're gonna get to learn through this episode here. Frank, he is mentioned in the game. When you see him in the game, he is dead already.
Yeah.
You find his dead body. It's insinuated they have some sort of history in the game. You don't really know what, other than that they live together at some point. You do find a note.
Partner.
The note in the game is drastically different than the note you see in this game. I mean, in the show.
The game's mean.
Very mean.
Very mean.
Very mean. But just because I didn't know how they were going to do this in the show, and it's so funny even watching it with Annette as we're, when Bill brings him in and you're getting to know Frank, she's just like, I don't trust this guy.
Dude,
and I was like, you know what? And like that seeped into my mind, and I was like, wait a minute. Maybe I shouldn't trust this guy.
I don't like this dude either. We didn't like him either.
Because it seems so fishy. It seems too good to be true at first. Because I love that line at the beginning. He's like, if I let you in, everybody's gonna come in. And he's like, this isn't an Arby's. I'm not handing out free food. He's like, Arby's didn't hand out free food.
Yeah, Arby's wasn't free either. He does let him in though, and he feeds him and everything. And then he's like, oh, let me go play the piano. I was like, don't fucking touch this man's piano. Like,
yeah, right.
This dude just fed. Don't like. Imagine yourself in Frank's situation. I would never. I'd be like, oh, all right, man.
I wouldn't want to touch anything. Yeah.
Thank you very much, man. It was a great meal. Well, can I say? Oh, I can't. All right, I'm out. I'll see you later.
Yeah.
Frank was very like upfront.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I think Frank is like a completely opposite type of person than like he's a free spirit. We'll
get to know. Yeah.
I love the presentation of it because he just comes out. He has like the nice it looks like a just an expensive meal that you would get at an expensive restaurant. It's all like set up nicely. He even like arranges the plate, like he kind of like faces it the way he wants it to face towards him. But I feel like Frank, he kind of knows, like he sees there's something that Bill's hiding a little bit. And I mean, it comes out with that piano scene.
Well, he talks about the wine. He's like, oh, somebody knows how to pair wine with.
Exactly.
He's like, I wouldn't take you as somebody.
Some of these little hints that Frank's like, okay, I kind of know a little bit about this guy already. And maybe that's what makes him comfortable. Yeah, maybe that's what makes him comfortable. Like, you have a piano. Before I go, maybe I've been eyeing this piano up or whatever. But he's sitting there playing, and he's like trying to play off the music. He's like, I know this was yours, Linda Ronstadt or whatever. This had to be your music.
Linda Ronstadt.
But you find out like the piano was like Bill's mom's and everything, and that he likes playing. But this scene, there's a couple scenes in this episode, but this scene got me. I got a tear a little bit, got teary a little bit. But man, when Bill sits down, he starts playing, and it's just a completely different tone. The way from Frank was playing it, and it's just so melancholy, and the way he's singing to it, it's just so much emotion. And that tiny
Bill
little
Offerman's
scene,
got a good voice. He got a good voice.
He does, man, and.
Yeah.
Not even just the scene, but Nick Offerman acts the shit out of this episode, and so does the dude that plays Frank. They both are fantastic in this episode.
I'll tell you what gets me, and it's Nick Offerman also, but there's a scene that gets me too eventually.
Oh yeah, there's a couple of them here, but I just love that scene where he's just, and he's like, I'm not a professional, I'm sorry, because he even like kind of he yells at him a little bit at first, but then he's like, I'm not a professional either, but then he sits down and he starts playing, and then like Frank realizes that he's kind of opening up to him. This is a side that Bill normally wouldn't show anybody else, but he's showing Frank here, and that really kind of makes Frank open up to Bill a little bit, and they make a move.
Miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
And he even tells him like, go up and get a shower, and like whatever.
That's a big move. He's like, go up and get a shower.
And I even like that scene, like when he comes out and he's like in this bed and he's like, I want to let you know I'm not a whore. I don't sleep around for food. I don't do any of this. So
not for lunch. I'm staying here a few days.
Yeah, if I do this, I'm gonna stay here a couple days. Is that okay with you?
Yep.
But I just like, it's so like Nick Offerman is just so nervous. You could tell and everything. Like just it's his first time. He said he's only ever been with like a woman once before. But man, just through this whole episode, like, I don't know, they're adorable. It reminds me of like, not to the extent, because you would go way deeper. It's more of a human real connection in this, but part of me reminded me of like Little John and Big John from like Halloween Kills.
It's like a cute couple.
Just a cute couple, man, just for different reasons. But like, I just like the dynamic because there's polar opposites, but they come together and they fit so perfectly. But that's really what kickstarts it, man. They develop a bond, and he stays way more than a couple days. It cuts to like 3 years later.
We skipped to like another 8 years later. And I think some of it's probably who else are you going to find in the apocalypse? You know, you kind of take who you can get. But secondly, I think that this episode is really another theme of it is just like finding happiness in the little things, even in this fucked up world. They had each other, you know, they had them.
Yeah. And I think in the game, the part with Bill in the game, even though it was a completely different situation, it had a way different, it had a polar opposite message than this, and then the show with Bill. Because in the game with Bill, when he's talking with Joel, he's even like telling him like to leave the girl behind. He's like, man, this is bad for you. This is just going to go down a bad road for you. You need to take care of yourself. Worry about yourself first and foremost. Whereas in the show, it's more like you were saying, like find that one thing and hold it as long as you can. Like find the reason that you're here, like, and just protect them as long as you can. And I don't know. I like the show, the message from the show, how I portrayed it more than the game did.
I'm a little torn between that message. I did talk about this with Marissa. I feel like in the show, and maybe we're gonna have less time with these people, so maybe that's why they did it. It's a little more heavy-handed. It's not like Joel is gonna figure this out, because Joel figures that out too in the game. That this is who he is important. This is who important to him. But it's a bigger, more natural growth. Where this felt, in the end of it, kind of heavy-handed, like, hey, take care, like, we're those type of people, Joe, you take, and we're getting to that, but I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying it was more heavy-handed the game. Now, I'm not a writer of the show. Maybe they have so much planned that they don't have time to really flesh it out. So maybe they
Maybe.
had to.
Yeah, we
And
don't
I
know
get
how
it.
the rest
That
of the
yeah,
series is going to pan out.
that's good writing then. We need the moment where Joel decides that this is what's important to him, because that moment comes in the game too, you know.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I mean, we are kind of jumping ahead, but I don't think
Yeah.
at the end of the episode with the letter, I don't think that's the moment Joel realizes. I think that's kind of like the seed that gets planted in his
Sure.
head, and he's starting to think about it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because he knows how Bill is, and we're going to get to that part of the episode. He knows how Bill is. He knows he's kind of a tough nut to crack. He knows he's a he's a rough dude. So for that
scene.
kind of dude to write that and say that sort of thing, he knows it's important, and that's why it kind of sticks around his head a little bit longer.
Sure. Yeah.
But back to Bill and Frank, it does cut some years later, and you get to see just how relationships go. You cut and they're fighting. You're fighting and they're yelling at each other. I mean, just out in the streets because there's fucking nobody there. I mean, they're alone. But Bill, he's set in his ways. He wants things to be his way. He has them there like that for a reason. Frank, he wants to kind of have some sense of normalcy. He wants to kind of fix some things up. He wants to fix some of the shops up. Yeah, just want some paint and some gas and just
He's like,
some
I just
stuff.
want to paint and mow my lawn. That's all I want to do.
Just wanted some sense of normalcy. I want some friends. He's like, there's nobody here. What friends? What do
No
you mean?
friends.
And then he's like, I've been talking with a woman on the radio. He's what? What do you mean?
And then after he says he wants to fix up the boutique, but then we cut. My favorite scene is Joel, Tess, Frank
at that,
and
like
Bill
they're having
the
brunch out
dinner.
in their yard.
He's got the gun right here.
Just pointing at it. He's like, Bill, you could put the gun down. Put the gun down, Bill.
He's like straight, like they had to get there at first, you know. He's like, nope.
Joel's just like, I get it. I understand how it is.
Yeah.
Whereas like Joel is like a tough dude. He is rough, but I feel like he's a little bit more open than
he's not quite Frank or Bill.
Yeah, he's not quite like Bill. I mean, I think that's in part to Tess and everything too. But you really get to see how their relationship started, because in the game you really you know that they have some form of history. You just don't know why or how.
Yeah, there's history.
But pretty much what they kind of make a deal where they're going to help each other get resources.
Yep.
Like Bill and Frank can share some of their resources. They'll help them get some of the stuff they can't get where they're at.
Yeah, and they're going to bring them. It sounds like mostly because they do get like Frank his paints and stuff.
Yeah. Well, Joel says about like that, like fence you have isn't going to hold for another year or two. I can get you some shit that'll last you a lifetime. And like the next time it cuts, there's literal cars just made into a wall with fencing and stuff.
He's like, I don't need your fencing.
I don't need your help.
Yeah, I'll get my cars.
And I don't, even when they like Frank and Tess kind of walk away, you kind of get that little bonding experience between like Bill and Joel, or Joel's like, I get it, man. I like you're inviting a stranger and you have a nice setup, but we got to help each other. Like, we're good people. I understand you don't think we are, but we are good people.
Yeah, I think Joel is shystering him a little bit here.
A little. He's trying to sell him on it. Yeah.
But even in the game and in the show especially, I think Bill in the show is like, I don't think Bill's out to shyster anybody. He just wants to do by himself.
Yeah,
Joel's willing
wants
to do
just
it.
Be alone and do things his way.
Joel is willing to be the bad guy in situations. So I think Joel was dead set. He's like, I'm going to get this stuff regardless, but let's try to do it the good way.
He's going to tell him exactly what he wants to hear.
Exactly. Which I think is a good scene. I think it's good for both characters.
But Joel, he means well though, but he's there for a reason. Like he's there because he's there to try to help get some of their resources. There is stuff that he wants from them, but he is a good guy, because even like as they're on their way out, he even tells them like, listen, there's raiders out there. They're gonna come eventually, and they're gonna try to take whatever you have. So be on the lookout. They're gonna come at night.
Yeah,
and
traps won't stop them all.
Yeah, and literally then like the next scene it shows is like them sleeping at night, and Frank wakes up to like all the alarms and shit going off, and Bill's already outside fucking shooting at him. Like the raiders are trying to get in, they're getting lit on fire, they're getting blasted by the traps, they're getting electrocuted by the fences. It's awesome. And he's just not even hiding behind cover, he's just standing in the middle of the road just fucking blasting.
Probably would have been fine unless Frank said something.
Yeah, And Frank comes, like, he grabs that gun out of the drawer and runs out. He's like, "Get back in the house! I got this." I didn't like the way the scene ended though, because the way it ends, it makes you seem like Bill dies.
Bill died. Yeah, it does.
Because like he gets shot. Frank pulls him in, and I like that scene because it shows you at that point, because it's a couple years later, it shows how their connection with their relationship with Joel and Tess has grown, because immediately as soon as shit turns wrong, he's like, "I got a list of shit you got to do." And
call Joel, he'll know what to do, you know.
All Frank's trying to do is just keep him talking and keep him awake. That's why he keeps like, "All right, tell me the list, do all this," while he's trying to patch him up. And he's like, "Call Joel. Joel know what to do. He'll take care of you. You won't be alone." And it's like he's putting so much trust in Joel.
He's worried about Frank though.
He's worried about Frank. Yeah. And I mean, the way that scene ends, he's just like laying there with his eyes open. And you're like, "Oh shit, did Bill die? And is Frank gonna be like Bill's role in the game, like when Joel and Ellie show up?" But no, it cuts literally like 10 years later, like catching up to 2023, where Joel and Ellie are. They're real old. But you go from one bad situation with Bill being shot to an even worse situation where like Frank's got like ALS. Or something.
They don't really quite say, but yeah, something like that. He can't move very well, stuff like that.
He's in a wheelchair. He can't walk around. Like it shows him like carrying him to bed and getting him out of bed at certain points. He's making pictures. Like there's pictures all around the house of like Bill and him. He's painting. But even as he's painting, like half the painting, like you could see like it's streaky. Like he's shaking and stuff. He can't paint like he used to. But man, this is fucking heavy, dude. Whenever he wakes up in the morning and he's already in his chair, he's like, "I spent half the night getting here, but I'm here." And man, he just tells him like, "This is my last day." And he's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And man, that scene where he's telling him like, "This is what I want to do. Like, I'm gonna go to the boutique. Make me a great breakfast.
Yeah,
we're gonna go to the boutique. We're gonna pick out some
alfalfa.
Yeah, you're gonna wear what I pick out for you. You're not gonna complain.
You're gonna wear it.
We're gonna get married. You're gonna make me a amazing dinner, and then you're gonna crush up all these pills and put in my my wine, and I'm gonna go to sleep."
And Nick Offerman is blubbering, crying during this scene. Like
so sad.
It broke. I was.
Bro, that's where I was tearing, bro. I was like,
tearing,
"Oh my
man.
God, no!"
It got me.
And in the back of my mind, because I knew how the game was, there was a piece of me that he was going to leave that same note where like he was kind of playing him the whole time, like, "I hated you this whole time" type of thing. And I was like, please don't do that, because that's going to be even more heartbreaking if that happened. But it of course it didn't.
I thought they were going to leave the same note too, but I thought it was going to be more like Nick Offerman says no, they kind of have a fight, and this was kind of just like you're yelling at your dog, "Go away, we never loved you,"
and then
kind of stuff. Like
he ended up going out and getting bit, and then that's what happens pretty much in the game. Yeah,
he had ALS. That's why I don't know what he has, but he was confined to a wheelchair. I was like, man, how's this guy gonna get the fuck out of here? Like,
yeah, because in the game they find like Frank hanged himself because he got bit multiple times. He just like went out to a place and hung himself and left a note, pretty much explaining how much he hated Bill all these years. And like, he's like, "I'm surprised you came out this far to find this note or whatever." But yeah, man, this is such, not even just that scene, but such a heavy, just
the whole time. Yeah.
The rest of the time here
Bill does what he wants him to do.
It's just music. There's like no talking. It's just them.
They get married.
Yeah.
They have breakfast. They get married.
He makes them the same exact dinner that he made when he found them.
Same wine and everything.
The same everything. Yeah.
Marissa was like, "How do they still have wine left?" And I was like, "Oh, they conserved it. I don't know."
Yeah, I can't imagine he drank that much wine over the course of.
It seemed like they drank wine every night, like with dinner. But maybe I was like, maybe he made his own wine for like, and it was just special occasion wine, you know?
Yeah, but you gotta think he had that whole liquor store to himself, though. Maybe there was a shitload of wine in there. I don't know.
I could go through a liquor store pretty quick. I'm just
especially if it's apocalypse and you're by yourself or whatever, or if it's just two people. What else do you have to do?
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, he makes them the food, and they have dinner and everything, and he even like has the bag of crushed up stuff, mixes it for him, and drinks it. And then whenever they have that, they toast and they drink, and then Frank realizes like, "Wait a minute,
yeah,
you poisoned the whole bottle, didn't you?" He's like, "Yeah, enough to kill a horse."
Enough to kill, yeah.
And I mean, that just says it right there. I mean, Bill just doesn't want to live a life without Frank. And that's really what we mentioned before about the note that he leaves for Joel.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna get teary-eyed just thinking about
Yeah.
it, dude.
I was getting goosebumps when we were talking about him in the morning.
Just
I was
thinking
like,
about it, like, oh my gosh, dude. And like he realizes that he doesn't want to live without. Like he realized what he had before Frank was there, and then his life was just so much better afterwards. And I
found
mean,
something to live for.
I couldn't imagine doing that, man. Like just
Mm.
going on living your life without someone that you were there with for 20 years. Literally, just you're the only two people that you're dealing with. That's hard, man. And
Dude,
then
me and
they
Marissa,
go up and go to bed.
it brought up conversations between me and Marissa about like, what are we gonna do when we get old? You know, because hopefully I'm still with her. Like I was like, oh my god, like I don't want you to take care of me, but I can't take my own life. We
I
can't go
know.
out together. You know, like
Yeah. Even,
like
but yeah, I was gonna say, like, even before that scene, like, whenever you see how Frank is, like, I don't want that to be me, man. Like, I don't want
Yeah.
Annette to have to take care of me, or like
Exactly.
I don't
Like,
want
I
to
don't
be a
wanna-
burden on somebody, you know?
I don't want to deteriorate, but I also understand, like, because on the flip side, she was like, "Well, you have to take care of me." I was like, "Well, I love you. Like, I'll do it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm here for you if I can." And she's like, "Well, same." And I was like, "Yeah, but I don't want you to. Like, I
Exactly.
don't want you to take care of me. I'm okay
Yeah.
taking care of you."
You feel like a
But-
burden.
Yeah. Oh
But-
yeah, man.
It's such a good scene, and then like they go up to bed, and that's the last time you see old Bill and Frank.
Wow.
Before we move on, though, there is a scene we didn't mention before, and that was after the scene with you see Joel and Tess with Bill and Frank. Frank surprises Bill because he grew a secret garden of strawberries. And this is
And-
probably one of my favorite moments of the episode is when they're sitting down and they both get to have a strawberry for the first time in who knows
yeah.
how long. And he has that just giggle that he does, like even Ron Swanson in Parks and Rec does the.
Yeah.
It's just adorable, and just the way that they're bonding there, and like they're about to fool around. He's like, "Not on the strawberries."
Not on the strawberries. He's like, "Oh, okay."
But just that scene, and there's so many
It's a
of
good scene.
there's a couple different times in the episode of just those scenes where they're bonding, and you really get to. I don't know. You get that connection, and it feels real and genuine, and it's so hard to do that in a span of an hour, man. And
I'm
just
with
characters you didn't know before in the show, and you're not going to know afterwards. And it's so hard to get that kind of feeling in an hour. And man, they did it perfectly.
We burned through the bullet points of it, but Wyatt is right. Like you really do feel a genuine connection to these characters, and it's not because of the games, because these are, again, like you said, so off kilter from what the game was, of what Bill was. And you
Yeah.
never even meet Frank in the game. That these are just brand new characters, and man, they make you fall in love pretty quick.
They
Like
do.
I was invested, and like we said at the beginning, at the top of this episode, I would be down for a 2-hour cut. I'd watch it. If a
I would
2-hour
totally
cut
watch a
came
2-hour
out
cut.
tomorrow, I'd watch it. I'd be like, all right, we're watching this 2-hour cut of this episode.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It is. They really do make you fall in love with these characters, which good for them.
Yeah, and from the note that it mentions, they dated it like August of 2023, which isn't. They didn't die long before Joel and Ellie kind of strolled through.
Yeah.
Because when they get there, of course, there's nobody there. Joel knows the code to get into the fence and everything. They go into the house. It's just the lights are still on. It's all empty. The meal is even sitting on the table, just moldy. He goes, the one door's shut, and Joel tries to go in, but it's like barred shut. He can't get in. And then they find a note, and he's just, and I love how she's reading the note, and he's like, well, I'm guessing this is Joel because Joel's the only one that knows the code to the gate or whatever.
Everybody else be fried.
And then he's like, yeah, she even says like the
reads it.
laugh.
She's like, ha, 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 ha. Why would he-
But like we mentioned before, he really goes into the note about just saying like, find that person, find something that gives you a reason to live within like just the shit hole that we live in. You know, the way that the world is.
He talks about how Joel and him are both like, we take care of people, you know, we need that person to get us through the next day. And he's talking about Tess.
He even name drops her, but she like Ellie even stops reading, and then she hands it to him, and then he reads the rest of it. But it's she even knows, like Ellie, she's like, I'm not gonna, push the issue. Like I'm gonna give him space or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's such a great scene, and it kind of lightens the mood a little bit. She's like, they have hot water. I'm going to get a shower, and you're getting a shower too because
you stink.
You stink.
Oh, I do like. I like that Frank and Bill got to live this, I mean, life of luxury in the world of Apocalypse. I like
Yeah.
that Ellie and Joel get to experience some of it at the end of the episode where they do get a hot shower, they get a change of clothes.
They
You know, they
literally
get, like,
wear the same
food.
clothes you see on the cover of the game and through the rest of the game, pretty much. They get
Yep,
those
yep,
fresh
red
clothes.
shirt. Yep. So I like that they get a little bit of Bill gets to give him kind of one last thing.
Yeah, he
'Cause,
gives
I mean,
them
that hot
access to
shower.
his whole armory. They go down,
Yeah.
and she even says like, "There's
There's guns on
walls
the wall.
lined with guns." And he's like, "No,
No.
it's fine." But then she like goes up and she finds that little pistol that Frank kept in that drawer upstairs, and she sneaks it into her bag, which that's gonna
Coming
come
up.
up later at some point.
Yeah.
But Annette even said to me as we were watching, she's like, "I wouldn't go anywhere. I would just live in that little community if I were them." And I was like, "They have a mission to go on.
Like,
And
he's gotta
Joel's
get his
gotta
brother.
Joel's
Yeah.
got to find his brother and get Ellie where she needs to go." But
Yeah,
you're
maybe if I
right.
was
I mean,
Ellie.
if I found that place, I would totally live there.
Yeah. If I was Ellie, I'd be like, I'm good.
Yeah, can
I
we
don't
just
need to
live
find
here?
Yeah.
Like, I
You
know we
go.
don't really know each other, but I mean, this is the perfect situation.
Hell yeah.
But we didn't mention like the note even says like, "Don't come in this room. It's probably an awful sight." We even left the window open so it doesn't stink the house up and everything.
Which we end on. We end on the window, which I thought something was gonna happen there.
I thought it was
gonna
gonna.
pop out.
For a second, I thought it was gonna show them like kind of just like, I don't know if they were gonna just be spooning and they were gonna be dead. I just thought they was gonna show them, but they went the classy route. They didn't show
That's just-
anything.
Which is a very Last of Us scene. A lot of Last of Us is just like windows and just like you're just
Yeah.
kind of seeing things
But the
in
way
the
that
world.
they kind of ended it, the way that the shot was on the window looking out at the trees, it was a very beautiful shot. It wasn't showing
Absolutely.
any like of the decaying, gross world. It
No,
was
no.
actually showing pretty much the point of the episode was showing you the beauty within this terrible world we live in.
Yeah, I mean that was the point. I mean you said it much better than me, much more eloquent. But that was the point. Like Last of Us, a lot of the Paul's menus, a lot of the menus are like these beautiful shots of this dilapidated world, but they're not like it's like the beauty in this world.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I agree. You said it better than me.
Yeah, it was a perfect shot to end on. And I like even just that interaction, like, because they didn't even have to go out and find the battery like they did in the game. Like they had to go to
Yeah.
that school in the game, and that's where you run into the bloater and everything. But they had like Bill already had the battery taken out and even taken apart in the fridge or whatever. He just had
Yeah.
to assemble it and charge it up. And Ellie is just blown away by this old ass truck. She's like, "This is a
Car.
spaceship."
He's like,
She's like, "Put your
piece of shit
seatbelt on."
S10.
Yeah.
What? She's yeah. He's like, put your seatbelt on. She's like, what?
He just
She
reaches
has
across and puts it on for her.
no idea what a seatbelt.
And she pulls that cassette tape out. It's the same. It's Linda Ronstadt. It's the same song that they played on piano.
Which I
and
saw
Joel's like,
got
"Oh,
boosted.
this is Linda Ronstadt. I know who this is."
That song got boosted to 700% since that
saw.
episode, but yeah, which is good for it.
That just
Um,
seems like the theme nowadays. Anytime like a huge fucking show comes out with an older song, that song's gonna blow up for like a couple weeks. Just
Well,
like
good for
the
it.
one from Stranger Things and everything.
Yeah, the Metallica song.
Running up,
but
Metallica, and then like the running up that hill, like the Kate Bush song.
yeah, which that is a good song, which I never heard that either. But
Yeah.
yeah, all in all, I did love this episode. Now I want to quickly just get my complaints across.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say I absolutely love the episode. So far, I love every episode. It's not my favorite. I see it's a lot of people's favorite, and I get that.
Yeah.
My biggest complaints. You kind of brushed on it. I love the school scene in the game, and I said maybe they'll bring it later.
Yeah, maybe they'll bring
still
it up
go
at a
into
different
school.
point.
But that's an awesome intro to the bloater and shit when he pushes the bus and stuff. Like that's an awesome intro. So I hope they do. Secondly, one of the most iconic scenes for Last of Us for me is when you first meet Bill and he gets roped up with the fridge and you're hanging upside down and you're shooting the zombies coming at you, the infected, and Ellie has to cut you down. I was like, they're not gonna do that scene. Like that's
I mean, that could
best
come up at some
fucking-
point too. Who knows?
You're right, but I mean that was the intro to Bill. Obviously, I missed that Ellie and Bill didn't get any kind of,
Yeah, I would have
were
wished we
kinda
would have got
mean to each
something
other.
out of that. Yeah.
Yeah. But all those minor complaints aside, and those are really just like, oh, I watched the game. I want it to be more like the game. It's
Yeah.
not the game. I get it. But it was a great episode. It is the most heart-wrenching episode. And honestly, I think you could watch it almost on its own and it would be pretty good,
Yeah,
Like
I completely
obviously,
agree.
the Ellie book caps there, the Ellie and Joel end caps on 2 would make much sense to you, but the whole middle part, a good solid chunk hour of this show episode would make perfect sense, and it's very good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this episode, and I don't know if you ever heard of it. There was a show called The Leftovers on HBO. It came out a couple years ago. There was a couple seasons. But
So,
this episode kind of reminded me of a couple episodes in that show because the show itself had a general overarching story, but every couple episodes in the series, it would kind of one episode would focus on like one of the side characters for like the whole episode, and it would have this kind of whole separate entire story just contained in one episode, and that's what this kind of reminded me of a little bit because it was kind of
yeah,
its own self-contained thing. I was seeing some complaints from some people online, like Twitter, Facebook, saying like this wasn't necessary. Not just like the subject matter itself, but like this wasn't necessary to the story. This has no impact on Ellie and Joel going through the series. And I was like,
sure.
I don't know how you see that though. Just because like this is the reason that this, like we mentioned before, this is the seed that gets imprinted in Joel's mind, which makes him realize like this person, like this kind of brings the
Sure.
connection between him and Ellie a little bit more as they go on. Even more so than the game, because in the game, like we mentioned, Bill is trying to tell Joel
Push
like,
him, yeah.
yeah, push him away from her. Whereas in this one, it's telling you to come together. I don't know. I like the message in it more. I feel like
Yeah.
it definitely did its job. Was it necessary to make a whole episode around it? Maybe not. But I mean, I'm sure the rest of the series is going to be just as good, and it's going to keep following that story we know is going to happen.
Yeah.
So I
mean,
don't mind taking one episode to do this, especially because it did have some impact on the story going forward.
we're gonna go back in time. Like, listen, and I do see people's complaints, and I understand I
Yeah.
can put the shoe on the other foot. But if we're so strict that we're like, well, that doesn't affect Joel and Ellie's story, what does Joel's daughter dying in the beginning have to do with their story specifically?
Yeah,
Like,
you're
I
right.
understand how it's going to affect later, and we know eventually I mean, we saw it in the trailer. We're going to go back in time and see Ellie, and I always forget her name, but the girl she goes with the mall, her girlfriend in the mall. We're going to see that too. I know she's been cast, so eventually we're going back to see that too.
Yeah.
Technically, for Joel and Ellie's story, I don't need to know how she got bit.
Yeah.
I don't ever.
I don't need to know how the zombie apocalypse happened. I don't need to see that old lady telling them to like blow
Exactly.
the city up. Like you don't need any of that technically, but it's there.
Exactly. It's
And
there. It builds. This might have been a smaller building stone, like you said, planting the seed of why she means so much to him.
Mhm.
Hey, Joel, lighten up. There are beauties in this world, but it's still a seed. I mean, it's another seed to get us to the end, which we know, but hopefully everybody will get to know where this is going, which is going to be great.
yeah, and because we know that we're going to be getting to that story going forward, I don't mind, and I actually kind of look forward to seeing some of the opportunities they get to go back maybe a little bit and see some stuff we didn't see in the game. Give some explanation to some of this
Yeah.
stuff. Give some backstory, just kind of just some side stories about maybe what be going on in that universe at what any given time. Just
Yeah, flesh it
some
out.
different some different world building stuff. You don't have to just follow the game every step of the way, because then at that point you might as well just play the game.
I've played the game, and
Yeah.
I am excited for them to go back into the mall. I don't know about you, but I never played the DLC. I mean, I knew it existed.
Oh, you never played the DLC?
Mm-mm,
Oh, it's good.
I mean,
dude.
I knew it existed. I know what it's about, but I never went back and did it. So I'm excited to see that episode eventually.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, what I mean, just like everything else, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah,
Just like everything else in The Last of Us.
That's The Last of Us.
Did you see the preview for the next episode at all?
Nope.
You
Mm-mm.
didn't? You don't watch the previews for the next episodes?
Nope.
Oh,
do.
we gonna have
Just
a good
wa-
one next week. We gonna have
I
a good
just
one.
watched.
But yeah, we got a lot of stuff to look forward to, I'm sure, man. I mean, you got a couple other characters coming up. I think it's Sam, I think his name is,
Yeah.
and his brother
Yeah.
that he looks after. Or Sam's younger brother, one of the two.
One of
You
the-
get
yeah.
some siblings that are coming up here soon. We're not going to spoil any of that, though, because that's some other heavy shit that's going to come up in the show, I'm sure.
Hoping that comes up. The cannibals come up. They got to come up eventually.
Yeah.
Gotta. I know it's a small scene, but I hope the giraffe with like the
It's gotta,
zoo,
man. It's
that's
gotta.
such a good scene too.
It's gotta come up.
I know these are wish list things. Like, are they coming? You know.
Yeah, or how are they going to change them? Or what
How
are
are
they
they
going to do?
Oh, and the subway scene, just like in the second episode, cap it off. We'll go back to the second episode, how I said that was an exact copy of the museum scene with the clickers. I hope the subway scene with the clickers is the exact same when you're right at that entrance. I already brought that up once before, but man, I hope that is like shot for shot, just like that. So I'm very excited for that. So
yeah,
all in all,
here,
loving
man.
it so far, man. Loving it.
Same. I mean, they just keep just knocking it out of the park each week.
Yep.
Like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, we are going to be doing these as bi-weekly. So next week we will have a movie review for you. The week after we will be doing episodes 4 and 5 and so on and so forth. Anything else you want to add here, Alex?
No, man. I'm loving it. Everybody go watch it.
Where can everybody find you here, Alex?
You can always find me on Tap That. And of course here, I love being on here every time you invite me, man. Thank you again.
Yeah, man, no problem. Hopefully have you on here going forward. Before I can tell you where you can find us, just want to announce if anybody hasn't seen on YouTube, on Twitter, on the gram, anywhere, we did announce our new show we're going to be doing on the channel here. It's going to be called Heroes of Our Time. It's going to be me and Vernon. Of course, Alex, you're going to be involved here as well. We are going to be having a huge mission ahead of us. We are going to be reviewing every superhero comic book movie in chronological order, starting with Batman, the movie from 1966 with Adam West and Burt Ward. It's going to be a never-ending mission because superhero movies are constantly coming out every year, and we're starting at the very beginning. So as long as this channel is alive, we're going to be doing this show. But this is a project we've been wanting to do for a while. That's why we really haven't been doing superhero or comic book movie reviews a lot on the channel. I mean, we did Sin City last week. If you haven't seen that, go check out our Sin City review. That is on the list for that show, so we might have to skip that whenever we get to it at some point.
You can get Vernon's opinion.
But exactly, that's going to be years from now, so maybe we can probably do like a re-review of it at some point with Vernon. But that is definitely on the horizon. If anybody hasn't checked the intro out, go check that out on Instagram and on Twitter. But that'll be dropping here in the next maybe month or two whenever we get the first episode recorded. But in the meantime, make sure to go check out all of our other content on the channel. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Make sure to go check us out on Instagram and Twitter. And wherever you get your podcasts, we're available pretty much everywhere. Drop in and leave us a good review. And we'll see everybody next week.